The world stood up for Black Americans. The George Floyd global protest and America's fear of Black solidarity. The murder of George Floyd shook the world. But what truly scared white America wasn't just that another Black man was killed by the police in broad daylight. What terrified them was the response. For the first time in history, protests for Black life went global.
As outrage spreads over the killing of George Floyd in the U.S., protesters have taken to the streets around the world. Thousands of demonstrators gathered in London to protest against racism and discrimination, despite calls from politicians not to defy the lockdown there because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Rarely have protests over deaths in custody drawn so many Australians. Tens of thousands rallied in Australian cities, great and small. Here, the death of George Floyd has suddenly created widespread anger about an Australian problem.
From London to Lagos, Berlin to Sydney, Kenya to Nigeria, the world rose up and said, "We see you, and we stand with you." That kind of solidarity was unprecedented.
In London, thousands poured into the streets around Parliament on Saturday in solidarity with American protesters. Their message, Black Lives Matter everywhere, and so does justice.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
And that's what made it dangerous. Why George Floyd was different. We've seen countless protests against police killings of Black men before. Eric Gardner, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Breonna Taylor, a Black woman. Names etched into our history. The pandemic had forced people indoors. Every screen, every device carried the same haunting image, a police officer's knee on a Black man's neck. 8 minutes and 46 seconds of agony. The world saw the life leaving his body, and this time, no one could look away. The outrage leapt borders.
George Floyd's death galvanized demonstrators from Berlin to Seoul, South Korea, to Rio in Brazil, to Sydney, Australia.
The U.S. military bases abroad were protested. American embassies was confronted, and the image of the United States, self-proclaimed defender of democracy and of human rights, was attacked in the court of global opinion. And for the first time, Black Americans had something we've never truly had before: global allies. The missing protection of a nation state. You see, Black Americans are unique in this world. We are the descendants of enslaved Africans, but we have no nation state behind us. If an American officer were to kill a Chinese citizen at a traffic stop, Beijing would pick up the phone and demand answers. That could escalate into political crisis, even war. America does not kill foreign nationals without consequences. But for Native Black Americans, descendants of the enslaved, no government comes to our defense. No ambassador calls Washington. No foreign ministry demands justice. That's why America has always been able to kill us with impunity. Our blood never triggered diplomacy. But in 2020, that script flipped. Suddenly, it wasn't government's protection of their own citizens. It was the people everywhere protecting us. From Asia to Africa, to Europe to South America, ordinary people filled the streets for George Floyd. The world stood with us.
There's the same anger, too, though overall the protests this weekend were peaceful. In London, police skirmished briefly with a small knot of demonstrators, and there was a flurry of excitement when a police horse bolted. But the main message coming from the mostly young, multiracial crowd was, enough is enough. And to Americans, you are not alone.
And that terrified the white power structure in America. Pay attention to the board. So what was America's response? Put Black people back in the box. Because make no mistake, they want black Americans oppressed, impoverished, vulnerable, and above all, isolated. What they fear most is a united world holding them accountable for the crimes against us. So after George Floyd, the US government and its institutions launched a quiet campaign, a campaign to put black people back in their place. The campaign against the black image. Cities and states began releasing mentally ill black men and women from institutions during and after the pandemic. But instead of providing care, housing, or treatment, they pushed them into the streets. Suddenly, in places like New York, subways and sidewalks filled with our most vulnerable.
Since the pandemic began, about 400 inpatient psychiatric beds have been eliminated in New York. And currently, there are an estimated 5,000 fewer adult beds available across the entire state for short-term care.
Confused, homeless, and untreated. Cameras captured their breakdowns.
Adds police and gets mental health to the homeless who are using the subway to live.
And then those images ran non-stop. Every news channel, every social media feed. The algorithm made sure the world saw one thing: black dysfunction.
Recent attacks caught on camera have many on edge. A teen boy beat up by a random mob on a subway platform, and an older woman sitting on a subway bench when a suspect smeared human feces all over her. Crime in the stations, on the platforms, and the trains themselves is out of control.
Pay attention to the board. But these weren't crimes. These was the results of untreated mental illness. They were the byproducts of abandonment. Yet the narrative was clear: chaos, violence, degeneracy.
There were 39 reported violent subway acts. The same week 1 year ago, just 15. That's a 160% increase, and that has many concerned.
At the same time, online platforms silenced the healers and the truth tellers while boosting the most toxic voices in our community. They wanted division. They wanted infighting. A centuries-old strategy of divide and conquer, updated for the digital age. And it worked. Around the world, the compassion that once filled the streets turned into suspicion. Foreigners began to believe the lie that black Americans are violent, unstable, and beyond help. So if another George Floyd happens, many outside of our borders will shrug. That's not our problem. Exactly what America wanted. Pay attention to the board. This is chess, not checkers. The truth that they don't want you to see. The world does love you, Black America. They love your music, your fashion, your art, your soul. They proved it in 2020 when they filled the streets in our name.
George Floyd's death galvanized demonstrators from Berlin to Seoul, South Korea, to Rio in Brazil, to Sydney, Australia.
That was not fake. That was real. That was power. And that is what America fears most. Our ability to inspire the world. Because they know if the world stands with you, if global solidarity takes root, then America's violence can no longer hide behind borders. Their impunity collapses under international pressure. The call to action. So what must we do? We must build on that moment. We must remind the world who we really are. We must form partnerships, connect with nations, show them our true image, not the distorted picture America sells. Black Americans cannot afford isolation. We need allies. We need relationships. We need solidarity that goes beyond sympathy and becomes structure, economic ties, cultural exchanges, political advocacy. Because we are not just a minority trapped in America's cage. We are a people with a global soul, a people whose culture has reshaped the planet. Do not let them destroy that image. Do not let them isolate you. The world stood up at once, and they will again. But we must call them back to the fight. We must remind them that our struggle is not only an American issue, it is a human issue. George Floyd's last breath reached across oceans. It woke up millions. And for one shining moment, the world said with one voice, Black lives matter. That power is still here. That solidarity has not gone. The question is whether we will seize it, nurture it, and use it as a weapon for our liberation. Because the truth is simple. America fears a united black people with global allies. And that is exactly what we must become. Don't let them trick you out of your power. You are more powerful with allies instead of enemies. And always remember this, the whole world stood up for Black Americans in solidarity, and that scared the United States of America. May blessings belong to you. My name is G.S. Brooks of the At-Risk Movement, and I approve this message. The psychology of freedom. What is freedom? Is it simply the absence of bars and chains? Or is it something deeper? The psychology of freedom takes readers inside the walls of prison to explore a profound truth. A person can be physically free, yet mentally imprisoned, and physically confined, yet mentally and spiritually liberated. Through lived experience, the psychology of freedom reveals how correctional institutions shape behavior, relationships, and identity, not only for prisoners, but for families, communities, and society as a whole. Discover the hidden psychological effects of incarceration, the pathologies that can outlast a prison sentence, and the mindset shifts that can transform adversity into opportunity. This is more than just a book about prison. It's a book about reclaiming the mind. The Psychology of Freedom by G.S. Brooks, available now on Amazon.com. Because true freedom begins within.